The room was quieter than it should have been. Not sad, just hollow. White chairs filled the space, perfectly arranged, most of them untouched. Programs sat neatly on seats no one claimed. A photographer adjusted his camera, paused, then adjusted it again. He was trying to find angles that didn't show how empty the room was. I stood at the front, bouquet in my hands, waiting for music that had already started once and faded out again. No parents, no siblings, no familiar faces. The officiant cleared his throat and asked softly if we were ready to begin. I nodded. I didn't look to either side of me. There was nothing there to look at. The ceremony went on anyway. Vows echoed more than they should. Applause came from pockets instead of rows. Someone coughed too loudly in the back. I focused on breathing evenly, on keeping my voice steady. If I paused too long, the silence would swallow everything. I didn't cry. Not because it didn't hurt, because crying would have required admitting I was surprised. I wasn't. My parents hadn't called that morning. My best friend hadn't texted. My sister hadn't sent anything at all. I told myself they were late, that something came up, that there would be explanations later. After the ceremony, we moved to the reception. Tables were set, place cards untouched. Our cake stood at the center of the room, pristine, waiting for a moment that already felt misplaced. As we lifted the knife together, I felt my phone vibrate in my pocket. Once, then again. I glanced down. A message from my mom. We need to talk. Now. Before I could process it, the screen lit up again and again. By the time we finished cutting the cake, there were 52 missed calls. And suddenly, I knew exactly why no one had come. People kept saying congratulations. Not loudly, carefully, like they were trying not to draw attention to what wasn't there. My partner squeezed my hand as we moved between tables that didn't need us. Empty seats, untouched favors, name cards that felt more like evidence than decorations. A few guests asked quietly if my family was running late. I smiled and said, they couldn't make it. I didn't explain why. I didn't say who. If you name the absence, it becomes real. My phone kept buzzing in my pocket. I didn't look at it again. I already knew what I'd see. My mother only called like that when something had gone wrong for her. Not when I was hurt. Not when I needed her. The pattern was familiar. Growing up, my sister had always come first. Not openly. Not cruelly. Just consistently. Her events were celebrated early and loudly. Mine were acknowledged later, if at all. When she got engaged, my parents flew out the same day. When I sent my wedding invitation, my mom asked if we could talk about the timing. I told myself it didn't matter, that adulthood evened things out. Standing there, cake crumbs on a plate no one else wanted, I realized how naive that had been. Absence isn't accidental when it's coordinated. My best friend hadn't shown either, the one who promised she wouldn't miss it. She'd stopped replying 3 days earlier. I looked around the room again, at the space where my family should have been. And for the first time that day, I stopped pretending this was bad luck. This was a choice. And judging by my phone vibrating nonstop, it was one they were suddenly desperate to explain. My name is Bianca. I'm the younger sister, which in my family always meant second. Not ignored, just deferred. Growing up, I learned early how things worked. If my sister wanted something, it happened. If I wanted the same thing, it was discussed, delayed, reconsidered. No one ever said it out loud. They didn't need to. At school events, my parents sat front row for her. At mine, they showed up late, waving from the back like that was enough. When she got engaged, the group chat exploded. Plans! Flights. Outfits. When I sent my wedding invitation, my mom called me instead of replying. Your sister's engagement party is that weekend, she said. Like that settled it. I reminded her I'd sent the date months earlier. She sighed and said, we'll figure something out. We didn't. The week before the wedding, my best friend stopped answering texts. No explanation, just silence. I told myself people were busy, that things slipped through cracks. But standing there in my dress, smiling for photos no one from my side would ever frame, I finally understood something. They hadn't forgotten. They'd compared, and they decided where they wanted to be. My phone buzzed again in my hand. Another missed call. I turned it face down on the table. For once, I wasn't going to chase them. If they needed to talk now, it wasn't because they cared about my wedding. It was because something had gone wrong on their end. And whatever it was, it had followed them straight into my reception. I didn't listen to the voicemails. Not then. I knew my mom's tone without hearing it. Urgent. Controlled. The kind she used when she needed something fixed fast. I slipped my phone into my bag and went back to the table. My partner asked quietly if I was okay. I said yes. It was easier than explaining absence again. Across the room, someone raised a glass and made a short toast. They kept it vague. Safe. I noticed the empty seats more once I stopped expecting anyone to fill them. My dad's chair. My mom's. My sister's. They stayed empty the entire night. When the music picked up, people danced. I joined them. Not out of joy. Out of resolve. I wasn't going to let their absence become the center of my wedding. They didn't get that. But every time my phone vibrated, I felt it more clearly. Something had happened. Something big enough to pull focus away from my sister's engagement party. Big enough to make my mom panic. And whatever it was, it had nothing to do with celebrating me. That was the part that hurt the most. Not that they didn't come, but that they only reached out once they needed something back. I found out what it was 2 days later. Not from my mom. Not from my sister. From my aunt. She called in the afternoon, voice low, like she was already tired of the situation. Your sister's engagement party didn't go as planned, she said. I waited. She hesitated, then sighed. There was a scene. A big one. Apparently my sister's fiancé hadn't known certain things. About money. About timelines. About promises my parents had made on her behalf. It came out in front of everyone. Arguments. Accusations. People leaving early. The party ended with my sister locked in a bathroom crying. Her fiancé gone. And my parents scrambling to contain damage they couldn't control. That's when the calls started. Not because they missed my wedding. Not because they felt guilty. But because they needed stability. They needed leverage. They needed me calm, available, and responsive. I sat there listening, phone in my hand, finally still. All those missed calls weren't concern. They were panic. And suddenly, the empty chairs at my wedding made sense. They hadn't chosen my sister over me. They'd chosen the crisis. And now that it had followed them home, they were looking for somewhere safe to land. My mom finally reached me that night. I let it ring twice before answering. She didn't say hello. Bianca, she said, breathless. We need to talk. Now. I pictured her pacing, phone pressed to her ear, already planning how this conversation should end. I just got married, I said. My voice surprised me. Calm. Even. Yes, I know, she replied quickly. But this is important. Important to her. She started explaining, talking fast, filling the silence with reasons. Your sister was overwhelmed. Things were misunderstood. It wasn't a good weekend. I listened without interrupting. She never said congratulations. Never asked how the wedding was. When she paused, waiting for me to step in, I didn't. I needed you, she finally said. The words slipped out sharper than the rest. I closed my eyes. You needed me, I repeated. Not at my wedding. Not before. Now. She went quiet. That was the moment she realized something had shifted. I wasn't angry. I wasn't pleading. I was no longer available on demand. And she could hear it in my voice. She tried to recover. I just think it would help if we talked this through, my mom said carefully. We're still a family. I looked around our apartment. Leftover flowers. Cards stacked on the counter. My wedding dress draped over a chair. You were a family this weekend, I said. Just not with me. She sighed, like I was being unreasonable. Like timing had simply been unlucky. You know how your sister is, she said. She needed us. I waited a beat. And I didn't? I asked. Silence. Not the accidental kind. The kind where someone realizes there isn't a good answer. She shifted tactics. Your father was stressed. People were watching. We didn't want a scene. I almost laughed. There had been a scene. Just not where I was. I'm not doing this tonight, I said. Bianca, I'm married now, I continued. My life doesn't pause when yours gets complicated. She started to say something else. I didn't wait for it. I hope things work out, I said, and I meant it. Then I ended the call. Not angrily, not dramatically, just finally. After that, the call slowed, not stopped, just spaced out. My dad left one voicemail. Careful, measured. He said they were proud of me, said he wished things had gone differently. He didn't say sorry. My sister didn't reach out at all. That part didn't surprise me. She'd always let other people clean up after her. My parents, friends, anyone willing. A week later, photos from her engagement party surfaced online. Smiling shots, carefully cropped. You couldn't see the people who left early, or the fiancé who never came back. I saved none of them. Life settled into something quieter after that. Not empty, just clear. For the first time, I wasn't waiting for a call that would explain everything. There was nothing left to explain. They made a choice. I responded to it, and that response didn't require yelling or ultimatums or distance measured in miles. Just a refusal to keep being the backup plan when something better fell apart. The strange thing was how quickly things normalized. Not healed, normalized. My parents went back to their routines. My sister went quiet. Family group chats stayed active, just carefully neutral. No one mentioned the wedding again. That told me more than any argument could have. Moments that matter don't get skipped by accident. They get avoided on purpose. I stopped filling the gaps for them, stopped sending photos, stopped offering updates they didn't ask for. When people asked how it felt, I didn't dramatize it. I said the truth. It clarified things. Because it did. I didn't lose my family that weekend. I learned exactly where I stood with them. And once you know that, you stop expecting different behavior. You stop waiting for people to show up in ways they never have. You build forward instead, quietly, intentionally, without keeping space open for people who already chose somewhere else. I still think about the cake sometimes, how we cut it together, how people clapped, how my phone wouldn't stop lighting up in my bag. At the time, I thought that was the moment everything broke. I was wrong. It was the moment things finally lined up with reality. My family didn't miss my wedding because they were confused. They didn't forget. They didn't get stuck. They chose where they wanted to be. And when that choice fell apart, they reached for me like a safety net they assumed would still be there. It wasn't. Marriage changes things in quiet ways. Not because of rings or ceremonies. Because you stop negotiating your worth with people who've already shown you their priorities. I didn't block anyone. I didn't make announcements. I just stopped rearranging my life around their emergencies. And strangely, that felt like the real beginning, not of distance, of peace. Some people only show up when something is wrong. Others show up when it matters. Now I know the difference. And I don't confuse the two anymore.